So today I'm going to talk about two ayahuasca experiences that I had. I don't know if you should call them ayahuasca experiences or discoveries. But I'm going to talk about the first one, the first night. There were two nights that we did back to back. I'm going to talk about the first night and what I learnt, if you will, or discovered on that first night. And then I'll talk about the second night, which was even more profound. And these experiences confirmed, it showed me what I already had discovered, but then there were some new things as well that were shown to me. So I just ask that you're patient, because anybody that knows anything about ayahuasca and these type of experiences know that it's quite hard to explain some of the stuff, because you're talking about something that is coming from a different level of consciousness. So we took ayahuasca, we mixed ayahuasca Caapi vine with the Chacruna, I think it's pronounced Chacruna plants or Chacruna leaves, which contain DMT, dimethyltryptamine, and we brewed them both and then mixed them together, and then we drank that. And we drank half of a glass each night. So the first night we were outside in nature, and it was at night time, 12, maybe 1 o'clock, and it was pitch black, but the sky was clear, so there were many stars in the sky, and it enabled for a great setting, if you will, for the experience. So to get into the experience, to start with, after about an hour or so, what I was starting to feel was a light tingling on the head. Now, from doing meditation and from being in your natural state when you're very aware, very present in the moment, very conscious, I have felt that sensation before, the tingling on the head, and that is basically the crown chakra opening to the vastness of consciousness, awareness. So that started to take place, and there was just a nice, subtle, relaxed feeling. But previous to that, we'd been sat for 4 or 5 hours in just talking briefly, but then in very long stints of silence. So we were very, very aware, and I think it's important to prepare before you do something like ayahuasca, because thoughts can play a role in some of the experiences that you have. So the more aware that you are, the more conscious that you are, then the better you'll be able to cope with the experience, whether it be a so-called scary kind of experience or whether it be a joyful experience. So then after that, nothing much was happening. My friend, something had started to happen with him. So I asked him, I says, you know, is there anything happening with you? Because all I can feel is just a light tingling on the head and just a pleasant, just a nice sensation, nice feeling. And he said, yes. He said, I can see, by looking at you now, I can see a multitude of rainbow colours all around you. I can only assume that that was what we call the aura. And he said, I could see all these colours around you, all different rainbow kind of colours, not just around you but within you as well. So then I then sat down after that, because I'd got up to walk around, and that's when he was able to see me, and then I sat back down. And then that's when my experiences started to take place. So then what happened was, all of a sudden, just laughter came over me. Just this sense of joy and laughter this real intense state of energy and bliss inside, to the point where actually my legs were shaking a little bit. My body was shaking through the energy. So, and I've experienced this before in deep meditation, or when you're just very, very aware in your natural state, but not to that degree. That was just so much more intensified. So then I looked up at the stars, and what I could see was that all the stars, the light from the stars, instead of it just being a point of light, one dot of light, the light seemed to spread out all over and seemed to connect to all the other stars, as if like a kind of spider web of light, if you will. All the stars were connected. And also, at the same time as that, there were tints of red colour, green colours, different colours, all mixed into that. And so then I thought, well, yes, so everything's connected, even the stars, the light is connected, everything's connected. So then what started to happen is, as I was looking at the sky, parts of the sky seemed lower than other parts. So what I was starting to get from that, and it's funny because my experience was that as this is happening, there is a kind of inner voice that's confirming everything, but it's happening so quick that it's not you as such. That's what I'll get into that later, what I feel that is. So it was confirming, yes, so that's also because everything is 3D. This is a 3D type of reality, if you will. So parts of the sky seemed lower than others, and so I was starting to see things more from a 3D angle. Then I looked down at the ground, and there were some conifers in front of me and a tree, and things were standing out more than others. I looked next to my friend, and he had his hands out in front of him like this, and so that then from where I was looking, his hands were in front of the conifers, not touching the conifers, but just in front from where I was looking. And his hands looked so much more pronounced than the conifers, as if the conifers weren't real. Again, this kind of 3D effect. Everything was in a 3D kind of effect. So then, I mean, we were outside and it was very quiet, very silent anyway, because it was at the time of night it was. But then all of a sudden everything just became just deathly silent, 100 times more silent than when you're out in the middle of nowhere and you can hear that ringing, that silence ringing. It's like everything just stopped. When that happened, I was looking over at the trees, and the wind was blowing, and I could see the silhouette of the leaves in the night, in the kind of sky in the background of it. And then the leaves just stopped. I looked over to Paul, and to my friend, and he had just stopped. His hand was in the air, and he'd just completely stopped. He wasn't moving. Everything just came to a halt. And while this was taking place, there was just such a joyful, peaceful feeling, and I literally I had my mouth open in awe and in pure joy of what was just happening. Everything just stopped. But I was just fully aware of it all, but yet this body just stopped as well. So everything just completely stopped, and then again the confirmation came, right, yes, so as you know, there's no time. Time is an illusion. So then I looked over at Paul, and I must have been, I mean, it were hard to gauge the sense of time, but I think I must have been in that position with my mouth open, everything just completely still for about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, in just a pure state of joy and awe of just everything had just gone completely still. As that stillness was taking place, I was able to also see that everything was, like I said about everything being connected and 3D, what also was coming to me was that everything was holographic, like a holographic projection. So as I was concentrating on, say, the conifers, other parts like the tree and Paul and things, all that was kind of flickering on and off, and when it flickered off it was like a white blank screen, if that makes any sense. The only thing I can try and describe it to is, I don't know if anybody's seen the video online called Beware of the Digital Deception, where it shows how when films are being made in TV programs, when characters seem to be in a location with, like, say, like in the centre of New York, or like the Grand Canyon in the background or whatever, and it seems so real, it's actually just a digital projection on a white screen. That's what was coming to me, that's what I was seeing, is that everything was just like a holographic projection. It wasn't really there, it was just a projection. So then again the confirmation came, yes, see, everything is holographic, which had always been a feeling of mine, but again, when you see it yourself, that's when you come to realise it. That's the only time you can realise it, that's the only time it can be solid in your awareness. So then I turned to my friend, and he'd had his hand up for about 15-20 minutes, like I'd had my mouth open. And I looked at his hand, and he had obviously five fingers on his hand 1 minute, and then next minute it was like he just had three. The other two had disappeared and his hand was almost morphing. Then what happened was, as I was looking at his hand, I could see his hand was in front of the tree was in the background. I could see then straight through his hand to the tree. It was either that his hand was becoming part of the tree, so then it was looking like the tree, or it was the fact that I could see through his hand to the tree, which was interesting. So again, just more confirmation that, see, it's just a projection, it's not real. Then, at another point, I closed my eyes, and when I closed my eyes, instead of there just being nothing there, just blackness, it was like there was an inner organic world within when I closed my eyes. There was, like people talk about, the geometric patterns and shapes and colours, there were all that going on, but then at the same time there was very hard to explain, almost like a living organic world inside. And as I had my eyes closed, it felt like I was in that world, and it was like I was moving around in that inner organic world. So that was very interesting. So that was pretty much it for the first experience, for the first night. That lasted for about, well, when it started to wear off from the peak of the experience, my friend thought that it was going to almost be light. He thought that about 6 hours had gone past, but I knew that that it was, again, it was just that the perception of time had become warped, and so I knew it wasn't as late as that. And it turned out it was only about 1:15. So we'd only been there for maybe an hour and a quarter in that experience. But the hour and a quarter seemed to be like 6 hours. So that was about it for the first experience, and that was pretty profound as it was, and it confirmed some things to me. It confirmed that this reality is holographic, it's a projection, everything's connected, as we know, there is no time. But the second night, well, that was even more profound. So please go and check out that video, which will be the ayahuasca experience number 2.